Strange new neighbor. The moving truck materialized rather than drove up to the house next door, and that should have been Michael Chen's first clue that this wasn't going to be an ordinary Thursday. At 62, the retired astronomer had seen his fair share of unusual phenomena through telescopes, but nothing quite prepared him for watching furniture float out of a vehicle that seemed to bend light around its edges. Michael lowered his morning coffee, focusing his keen observer's eye on the scene unfolding beyond his kitchen window. The spring morning had started normally enough, birds chirping, sprinklers ticking across perfectly maintained lawns in the quiet subdivision of Stellar Heights, Colorado. Now he watched as objects that defied physics and probably several laws of thermodynamics drifted through the air with deliberate precision. The new owner emerged from the ethereal truck, and Michael nearly dropped his mug. She, if that pronoun even applied, stood easily 7 feet tall, with skin that rippled like the surface of a soap bubble, refracting light in impossible colors. Her form was humanoid, but there was an elegance to her movements that seemed to flow like liquid mercury. Well, Michael muttered to himself, unconsciously reaching for his old notebook where he'd spent decades recording astronomical observations. This is certainly more interesting than another banking executive moving in. The alien, there was no point in pretending otherwise, turned toward his window as if she'd heard him through the glass. Her eyes were like twin nebulae, swirling with patterns of purple and silver. She smiled, revealing teeth that gleamed like polished opals, and raised a many-jointed hand in greeting. Michael found himself waving back before his rational mind could protest. 20 years at the Sierra Nevada Observatory hadn't prepared him for first contact happening in his suburban neighborhood. He straightened his sweater vest and decided that proper scientific observation required a closer look. Outside, the morning air tingled with an electric charge that made the hair on his arms stand up. The alien was directing the unloading process with gentle gestures, each movement leaving trailing afterimages in the air. "Good morning," she called out in perfect English, though her voice carried harmonic overtones that made wind chimes in the neighborhood resonate. "I'm Zorax of the Luminian Collective. I hope my arrival hasn't disturbed your morning routine." Michael cleared his throat, scientist mode kicking in. "Not at all. Michael Chen, retired astronomer. I must say, your method of moving is far more efficient than traditional services." Zorax's skin flickered with patterns of light that Michael suspected might be their equivalent of laughter. "Quantum displacement does make things easier, though I'm told it's considered somewhat showy on Earth. The real estate agent suggested a traditional truck for appearances, but I thought, why not be honest from the start?" "Refreshing approach," Michael said, watching as what appeared to be a living crystal chandelier floated past. "Though I imagine the neighbors might take some time to adjust. Stellar Heights tends to be rather conventional." "Oh, I'm counting on it," Zorax replied, her skin pulsing with deeper hues. "Humanity's capacity for adaptation is legendary among my people. Besides," she added with another crystalline smile, "I'm not here for conventional." As they chatted, Michael noticed subtle changes in the air around them. The morning light seemed to bend slightly towards Zorax, and the spring flowers in his garden were turning to face her like she was a second sun. His scientific curiosity warred with his instinct for caution. "If you don't mind my asking," he ventured, "what brings a member of the Luminian Collective to suburban Colorado?" Zorax's skin rippled with what might have been embarrassment. "Actually, it's rather personal. I'm entering my species' mating season, and Earth's unique electromagnetic field is ideal for—" She paused, searching for words. "Let's call it bioluminescent resonance." Michael's eyebrows shot up. "Mating season, here." "Don't worry," she assured him, though something in her swirling eyes suggested worry might be appropriate. "The effects should be minimal. Probably just some enhanced plant growth, possible aurora-like phenomena, maybe a few temporal anomalies. Nothing serious." Before Michael could process what nothing serious might mean in this context, a moving box passed between them, emanating a soft humming that made his teeth vibrate. Inside, something that looked suspiciously like a miniature galaxy swirled. That reminds me, Zorex said brightly, I should warn you about the quantum harmonics. They might affect your dreams for the first few weeks, but I brought cookies. She gestured, and a plate of what appeared to be glowing macarons floated toward him. They're completely safe for human consumption. Mostly. Michael accepted the plate automatically, his mind racing with questions. As a scientist, he was thrilled at the opportunity to study an advanced alien species up close. As a neighbor, he was beginning to wonder if his home insurance covered quantum harmonics and temporal anomalies. Welcome to the neighborhood, he said finally, realizing that his quiet retirement had just become significantly more interesting. Though you might want to wait before attending the neighborhood association meeting. Zorax's skin sparkled with amusement. Oh, I already submitted my landscaping plans. Did you know Earth has no specific regulations about quantum-entangled garden fountains? As Michael watched his new neighbor continue unpacking, he couldn't shake the feeling that Stellar Heights was about to live up to its name in ways the developers never intended. The glowing macaron in his hand pulsed gently, and somewhere in the distance, he heard the distinct sound of reality hiccuping. This, he decided, was going to require a much larger notebook. The glowing problem. 1 week after Zorax moved in, Michael Chen discovered that his tomato plants had developed consciousness. He stood in his garden, coffee mug in hand, watching as his previously normal vegetables swayed in synchronized patterns despite the complete absence of wind. One particularly bold tomato had started humming what sounded suspiciously like Mozart's Symphony No. 40. I see the quantum harmonics are having some interesting effects, Zorax called from over the fence. Her skin was glowing brighter than usual, casting prismatic patterns across the morning dew. Interesting is one word for it, Michael replied, stepping carefully around a cucumber vine that seemed to be attempting calculus in the dirt. My carrots formed a union yesterday and presented demands for better soil conditions. Zorax's skin flickered with apologetic patterns. Yes, the mating season's biofield is intensifying faster than expected. Earth's magnetic field is remarkably responsive. She floated, literally floated, over to his side of the fence, her feet hovering several inches above the ground. The past week had brought increasingly bizarre changes to Stellar Heights. Mrs. Peterson's prized roses now sang opera at sunset. The Johnsons' lawn had rearranged itself into a perfect representation of the Fibonacci sequence. And last night, several residents reported their dreams had synchronized into a shared experience of dancing through four-dimensional space. The neighborhood association is calling an emergency meeting, Michael informed her, trying not to stare at the way small galaxies seemed to be forming and dissolving in her eyes. Something like property values and unauthorized reality modifications. Oh dear, Zorax sighed, causing nearby flowers to harmonize in sympathy. I was hoping to have more time before the formal introductions. My bioluminescent resonance is still building toward peak intensity. As if to emphasize her point, a wave of iridescent energy rippled out from her form, causing every plant in a 50-foot radius to temporarily achieve enlightenment. Michael's tomatoes began debating philosophy. How much more intense is this going to get? Michael asked, his scientific curiosity warring with practical concerns. His instruments had been recording increasingly strange readings when they weren't too busy questioning their existence. Well, Zorax began, her skin cycling through colors that probably didn't exist in the normal electromagnetic spectrum. During peak resonance, there might be some temporary modifications to local spacetime. Nothing dangerous, just creative reorganization of reality's basic principles. Michael pinched the bridge of his nose. Creative reorganization. Like that, she pointed to where the air above his house had begun to fold itself into origami shapes. Though that's just the preliminary phase, the real effects start when the quantum entanglement reaches critical mass. Before Michael could inquire about what critical mass meant in this context, a group of neighbors approached, led by Howard Thompson from the Homeowners Association. Howard's normally perfectly pressed suit seemed to be struggling with maintaining consistent dimensionality. Mr. Chen, Howard called out, his voice oscillating between octaves. "We need to discuss the situations your new neighbor is causing." He gestured vaguely at the sky, which had decided to experiment with new colors. "Now, Howard," Michael started, slipping into his old lecturer's tone, "this is a unique opportunity for scientific observation. The effects are completely harmless." He was interrupted by the sound of every garden gnome in the neighborhood achieving sentience simultaneously. Harmless. Howard's eye twitched as a gnome wandered past, discussing existentialism with a particularly enlightened shrub. The Richardsons' koi pond developed time travel. Their fish are now evolving backwards. Zorex's skin pulsed with embarrassment. That should resolve itself once they reach the Cambrian period. She turned to address the growing crowd of concerned neighbors. "I understand this is unconventional, but I assure you, the effects are temporary. Mostly, probably." "Temporary isn't good enough," Howard declared, pulling out a heavily annotated copy of the Homeowners Association bylaws. "There's nothing in here about quantum harmonics or reality distortions. We have standards to maintain." Michael watched as the bylaws book began to glow faintly, its text rearranging itself into poetry. Howard didn't seem to notice, too focused on his prepared speech about property values and the importance of maintaining normal causality in shared spaces. "Perhaps," Michael suggested, "we could approach this scientifically. Document the changes, study the effects. This is unprecedented access to advanced alien phenomena." His excitement was slightly undermined by the fact that his shadow had just begun performing an interpretive dance. "Actually," Zorax interjected, her form becoming increasingly luminous, "there might be more immediate concerns. The resonance is approaching the transformation phase, and well," she gestured to where several cars had started floating, their metal frames humming in harmony with some distant cosmic frequency. The neighbors watched in collective amazement as their vehicles began an impromptu ballet in the street. Mrs. Peterson's Volvo was showing particular talent for pirouettes. "You see," Zorax continued, now glowing bright enough to be visible from orbit, "when a Luminian enters peak mating season, we tend to influence local reality. The good news is, it only lasts a few weeks. The interesting news is..." She paused as a wave of quantum probability collapsed around her, causing everyone's hair to temporarily turn into starlight. "The interesting news," Michael prompted, trying to ignore the fact that his coffee had just achieved consciousness and was contemplating the meaning of existence. "Well," Zorax said, her voice creating harmonics that made nearby windows resonate, "let's just say Stellar Heights is about to become a lot more stellar." As if on cue, reality hiccuped again. In the distance, the local golf course had apparently decided to explore non-Euclidean geometry. The 18th hole now required players to putt through a small wormhole. Michael looked at his glowing coffee, then at his philosophically inclined vegetables, and finally at his luminous alien neighbor who was rapidly becoming the most interesting research subject in human history. He made a decision. "Right," he announced to the gathered crowd. "I suggest we all go inside and prepare for some temporary adjustments to our reality. And Howard," he turned to the association president, whose suit had finally given up on traditional three-dimensional space, "you might want to consider adding a section about quantum physics to those bylaws." As the neighbors dispersed, some walking, others inadvertently floating, Michael turned back to Zorax. "I don't suppose you'd be interested in participating in a scientific study for posterity?" Her answering smile lit up the entire street. "Literally, oh Michael," she chimed, her voice causing nearby birds to break into four-part harmony, "this is just the beginning." Above them, the sky began to paint itself in impossible colors, and somewhere in the distance, a garden gnome started a philosophical revolution. Quantum love and other municipal headaches. The Stellar Heights Community Center had never hosted a meeting quite like this one. For starters, the building kept facing between dimensions, making it challenging for residents to find the right entrance. Mrs. Peterson had accidentally walked into the fifth dimension 3 times before Michael helped her find the correct door. Inside, the emergency town hall meeting was in full swing, though swing had become a literal description as the room gently oscillated through quantum states. Mayor Linda Williams stood at the podium, trying to maintain order while her pointer stick spontaneously evolved into a small tree. "Please, everyone, remain calm, and in this dimension," she called out, her voice competing with the harmonic resonance of reality itself. "We're here to discuss the unique situations arising from our new residents' presence." Michael sat in the back row beside Xerox, who had thankfully dimmed her luminescence to merely dazzling. She was still causing nearby chairs to achieve sentience, but they were being quite polite about it. "The first item on the agenda," Mayor Williams continued, consulting notes that occasionally turned into butterflies, "is the matter of unauthorized reality modifications. Mr. Thompson, you have the floor." Howard Thompson stood, his suit now seemingly made of crystallized time. "Thank you, Mayor. As head of the Homeowners Association, I must protest these continued violations of our community standards. Just this morning, my lawn attempted to teach quantum physics to the neighborhood children." "To be fair," Xerox whispered to Michael, "your species will need to understand 11-dimensional mathematics eventually. The lawn is just being proactive." Before Howard could continue his complaint, Mrs. Peterson raised her hand. "Actually, my grandson's test scores have improved dramatically since the quantum tutorials began, and my Rose's opera performances have been drawing quite a crowd." Indeed, there had been unexpected benefits to the quantum anomalies spreading through stellar heights. Property values had skyrocketed once word got out about the self-maintaining lawns that could also explain string theory. The local farmers' market had become the talk of the state, thanks to philosophically enlightened produce that could discuss Nietzsche while being exceptionally nutritious. But what about the temporal distortions? Howard persisted. The Johnsons' teenager came home from a date 3 days before she left. "That was actually quite convenient," Mrs. Johnson called out. She was able to warn herself about that awful boy before wasting an evening. Michael stood up, his scientific instincts taking over. "If I may, I've been documenting these phenomena, and the data is fascinating. The quantum harmonics from Xerox's mating season aren't just changing our reality, they're enhancing it. Local plant growth is up 300%, ambient intelligence has increased measurably, and the crime rate has dropped to 0 since the traffic lights gained consciousness and started giving life advice." The room murmured thoughtfully, interrupted occasionally by random bursts of cosmic understanding. Even Howard looked less apoplectic, though that might have been because his tie had started singing the calming melody. Xerox rose gracefully, her presence causing everyone's perception to briefly expand to include ultraviolet. "I understand your concerns," she began, her voice creating harmonies that made the laws of physics swoon. "My species' mating season can be intense, but it's also an opportunity. The quantum resonance is temporarily lifting the veil between what is and what could be." As if to demonstrate, the air around her shimmered, and suddenly everyone could see the infinite possibilities branching from this moment, countless potential futures spreading like a cosmic web. "You see," she continued, while reality rippled appreciatively, "my people chose your community for a reason. Stellar Heights sits at a unique confluence of Earth's magnetic fields. The resonance here won't just affect physical reality, it will catalyze evolution itself." Mayor Williams leaned forward, accidentally creating a small aurora borealis. "Evolution. What exactly are you suggesting?" Michael's eyes widened as he connected the dots. His instruments had been picking up increasing levels of quantum entanglement between human DNA and the ambient energy fields. "You're not just in mating season," he realized. "You're preparing this area for what exactly?" Xerox's skin pulsed with patterns that seemed to tell the story of the universe. "A bridge," she said simply, "between what humanity is and what it could become. My presence here isn't random, it's an invitation." The room fell silent, even the quantum fluctuations seeming to hold their breath. Then Mrs. Peterson's voice rang out. Will it affect my Rose's singing voice? They've got a performance next week. The tension broke as Zarex laughed, her mirth causing temporary rainbows to dance through the room. Your Roses will be fine. In fact, they might even learn some new areas from distant stars. Well, Mayor Williams said, straightening papers that had briefly turned into doves, I suppose we should put it to a vote. All in favor of officially sanctioning our resident aliens, activities and their effects on local spacetime. Hands raised across the room, some simultaneously in multiple dimensions. Even Howard managed a grudging nod, though his suit took the opportunity to explore abstract expressionism. Motion carried, the mayor declared, her gavel creating a small big bang as it struck. Now, about the scheduling of quantum anomalies, perhaps we could establish some guidelines. The spontaneous reality shifts are playing havoc with garbage collection day. As the meeting devolved into municipal minutiae, albeit with occasional bursts of cosmic enlightenment, Michael turned to Zarex. You knew this would happen, didn't you? Chose this place deliberately. Her smile contained galaxies. Humanity is ready for more than you know, Michael. Sometimes you just need a little push. Speaking of which, her skin flickered with what he now recognized as embarrassment. The real quantum resonance peak begins tonight. You might want to secure any objects you don't want achieving consciousness. Outside, the sun was setting in several directions at once, and the stars were rearranging themselves into more aesthetically pleasing configurations. Stellar Heights was living up to its name in ways its founders never imagined, and somewhere in the distance, a garden gnome was explaining the unified field theory to an enthralled audience of quantum-enhanced squirrels. The future, it seemed, had arrived, and it was glowing. When stars dance. The night Zorox's mating season reached its peak, reality decided to get creative. Michael stood in his backyard, watching as the stars above Stellar Heights performed an elaborate waltz across the sky. His scientific instruments had given up on conventional measurements and were now composing cosmic poetry instead. Beautiful, isn't it? Zorox's voice chimed from beside him, her form now so luminous she made the moon look dim. The quantum resonance is aligning perfectly with Earth's magnetic field. The air around them shimmered with possibilities, each breath drawing in stardust and exhaling dreams. Michael's garden had evolved into a sort of botanical university, with his tomatoes now offering advanced seminars in astrophysics to younger plants. I'm recording everything, Michael said, though his notebook had recently developed artistic aspirations and was now sketching portraits of higher dimensions. Or at least I'm trying to. It's becoming difficult to distinguish between observation and participation. Indeed, the line between observer and observed had grown increasingly blurry over the past few hours. Residents of Stellar Heights found themselves spontaneously understanding cosmic truths, their consciousness expanding along with the quantum field emanating from Zarex. That's rather the point, she replied, her skin pulsing with patterns that told stories of distant galaxies. The resonance doesn't just affect reality, it reveals its true nature. Your species has been ready for this for longer than you know. A wave of energy rippled outward from her form, causing temporary enlightenment in everything it touched. The local raccoons briefly achieved perfect understanding of quantum mechanics before returning to their normal activities, though now they organized their garbage raids with mathematical precision. The government's noticed, Michael mentioned, watching as another black SUV with questionable dimensional stability cruised past his house. They've been sending observers all week, though most of them end up joining Mrs. Peterson's Rose's choir practice. Zarex's laugh caused nearby trees to blossom with light. Yes, your authorities have been quite interested. 3 agencies have already attempted to classify me as a national security concern, but their paperwork keeps evolving consciousness and filing itself under cosmic phenomena instead. As they talked, the resonance continued to build. The air itself seemed to breathe with possibility, each moment pregnant with potential transformations. Michael's coffee mug, which had achieved enlightenment days ago, offered sage advice about the nature of existence. "Listen," Zorax said suddenly, her voice creating harmonies that made reality sing. "It's starting." The peak of a Luminian mating season, as it turned out, was less about reproduction and more about transformation. As the quantum resonance reached its crescendo, the very fabric of spacetime around stellar heights began to dance. Colors that had never existed before painted the sky. Music that could only be heard with the heart echoed through the streets. And in that moment, every human within range felt their consciousness expand beyond the boundaries of ordinary perception. Michael gasped as his mind touched the infinite. He saw the interconnected web of existence, the dancing particles that made up all things, the beautiful complexity of a universe that was far more alive than anyone had imagined. Through it all, Zorax glowed like a newborn star, her presence a beacon calling humanity toward its next evolution. "This is why you chose Earth," he realized, his voice carrying undertones of cosmic understanding. "Your species isn't just in mating season, you're catalysts for evolution." Zorax's smile contained universes. "We are gardeners of consciousness, you might say, finding species on the cusp of breakthrough, helping them take the next step. And humanity," her skin rippled with excitement, "humanity is so very ready to bloom." Around them, the transformation was taking hold. The residents of Stellar Heights found themselves changing, not physically but fundamentally. The quantum resonance had awakened something that had always been there, dormant in human DNA, the ability to perceive and interact with the quantum nature of reality itself. Mrs. Peterson walked past, casually manipulating probability fields to improve her Rose's chances at the upcoming interdimensional flower show. The Johnson kids played hopscotch across parallel timelines. Even Howard Thompson had embraced the change, using his newly acquired quantum awareness to ensure all lawns in the neighborhood maintained perfect quantum symmetry. Of course, Zorax added, as reality continued its enthusiastic renovation, "This is just the beginning. The resonance has activated latent potential in your species' genetic code. The real changes will unfold over generations." Michael watched as a group of children effortlessly manipulated quantum fields to create elaborate play structures out of probability itself. "Will it spread beyond Stellar Heights?" "The knowledge will," she confirmed, "the understanding of what's possible." The resonance merely awakened what was already there, the human capacity to comprehend and shape reality at its most fundamental level. Above them, the aurora had taken on fractal patterns that contained mathematical proofs for theories humans hadn't even conceived yet. The stars continued their dance, now accompanied by the harmonious thoughts of an awakening species. "There will be challenges," Michael mused, watching as another government vehicle approached, this one apparently having achieved quantum entanglement with its own bureaucracy. "Always," Zorax agreed, "but your species has a remarkable capacity for adaptation." And now, she gestured to where reality was still enthusiastically exploring new possibilities, "you have the tools to face them." The night deepened, but Stellar Heights glowed with its own inner light now, the light of human consciousness expanding into new dimensions. In gardens across the neighborhood, quantum-enhanced plants discussed philosophy under stars that had learned new ways to shine. And somewhere, in a newly sentient filing cabinet in a government office, a report was quietly reclassifying humanity from developing species to awakening civilization. The future had arrived, wearing colors that didn't exist and singing songs that could only be heard with quantum-enhanced ears, and it was beautiful. Evolution's dance. The day humanity officially became a quantum-capable species began, ironically, with a complaint about parking violations. The Stellar Heights Municipal Court found itself trying to process tickets for vehicles that existed in multiple spaces simultaneously, both legally and physically. "Your Honor," Howard Thompson argued, his quantum-enhanced suit rippling with indignation, "Mrs. Peterson's Volvo is occupying 17 dimensions at once, clearly exceeding the 2-dimension parking limit." Judge Martinez, who had recently gained the ability to perceive all possible timelines of every case simultaneously, rubbed her temples. Mr. Thompson, given that the parking ordinances were written before humanity achieved quantum awareness, I'm inclined to dismiss this case on the grounds of evolving circumstances. Michael sat in the back of the courtroom with Xerox, whose glow had settled into a comfortable radiance that only occasionally caused spontaneous enlightenment in nearby furniture. The past week had seen humanity taking its first tentative steps into a quantum-enhanced existence, with results that were both profound and occasionally absurd. The integration is proceeding faster than expected, Xerox whispered, her voice creating subtle harmonics that made the courthouse briefly consider becoming a concert hall. Your species has remarkable adaptive capabilities. Indeed, humans were proving surprisingly adept at incorporating quantum awareness into their daily lives. The local coffee shop now offered drinks in all possible states simultaneously, allowing customers to experience every potential flavor combination before settling on their preferred reality. The high school physics teacher had to completely revise the curriculum after her students began casually demonstrating quantum entanglement during lunch breaks. As they left the courthouse through several possible exits simultaneously, Michael noticed a group of children playing in the park. They were engaged in a new game that involved manipulating probability fields to create elaborate structures out of quantum possibilities, a sort of multi-dimensional hopscotch that would have given Einstein a headache. "I've been meaning to ask," Michael said, as they walked through a reality that seemed increasingly fluid, "what happens next? After the mating season ends?" Xerex's skin rippled with patterns that suggested both anticipation and amusement. "The resonance peak may end, but the changes are permanent. Your species has crossed a threshold. There's no going back to purely classical existence." They passed Mrs. Peterson's house, where her quantum-enhanced roses were now performing an opera that existed in all possible keys simultaneously, somehow creating music that could only be fully appreciated with an expanded consciousness. The audience, mostly consisting of evolved garden gnomes and enlightened squirrels, appeared deeply moved. "The government's finally stopped trying to classify everything," Michael noted, nodding to a federal agent who was busy experiencing all possible versions of his paperwork at once. "Though I hear the Pentagon is having trouble adjusting to soldiers who can perceive all potential combat outcomes before they happen. It does tend to make conflict less appealing when you can see all its consequences simultaneously," Xerox agreed. Her glow pulsed thoughtfully. "But the real changes are just beginning. Watch." She gestured to where a young girl was helping her quantum-aware puppy learn to fetch across probability fields. The child's consciousness expanded naturally into higher dimensions, her human mind effortlessly processing levels of reality that the greatest scientists of previous generations couldn't have imagined. "This generation will grow up with abilities that would have seemed like magic a month ago," Xerox explained. "And their children will be even more adapted to quantum existence. You're witnessing the birth of a new chapter in human evolution." As if to emphasize her point, reality had kept, and suddenly everyone could see the branching timelines of possibility stretching out before them, an infinite web of potential futures, each glowing with promise. The vision faded after a moment, but its impact lingered. "There's something else," Michael said, his scientific intuition picking up subtle patterns in the quantum field. "This isn't just about humanity, is it? We're not the only species you've awakened." Xerex's smile contained echoes of distant stars. "The universe is vast, and consciousness takes many forms. Let's just say humanity has just joined a much larger community. Those new colors you've been seeing in the sky, not all of them are natural phenomena." They reached Michael's house, where his garden had evolved into something between a botanical research institute and a philosophical think tank. The tomatoes were currently engaged in a heated debate about the nature of free will across multiple quantum states. "The community council is meeting tonight," Michael mentioned, watching as reality rippled around them like water. "They're voting on new zoning laws for interdimensional structures. Would you like to come?" "Wouldn't miss it," Xerox chimed, her voice causing nearby birds to break into harmonious quantum superposition. Though I should warn you, the real fun begins when humanity starts noticing the quantum signatures of other civilizations. Your astronomers are about to have a very interesting time. As if on cue, the sky above Stellar Heights shimmered with colors that didn't exist in normal space-time, and somewhere in the distance, a garden gnome achieved quantum enlightenment and began teaching string theory to a fascinated audience of dimensionally enhanced squirrels. The future had arrived, and it was quantum. Humanity's next chapter was beginning, written in the language of probability and possibility, sung in harmonies that echoed across dimensions. And in a small suburban neighborhood that had become ground zero for human evolution, a retired astronomer and his alien neighbor watched it all unfold with matching smiles that existed in all possible states of joy simultaneously. A new dawn. The official First Contact Day celebration in Stellar Heights took place exactly 1 month after Zoruk's arrival, though the term official had become somewhat flexible now that time existed in a quantum superposition. The community park had been transformed into a festival ground that existed simultaneously in several dimensions, with refreshments that could be experienced in all possible flavors at once. Michael adjusted his tie, which had recently developed a tendency to explore alternative fashion choices across multiple realities. I never expected to be giving a speech about humanity's quantum awakening at a neighborhood block party, he admitted to Xerox. His alien neighbor, now officially recognized as Earth's first openly resident extraterrestrial, glowed with anticipation. Her bioluminescence had stabilized into a gentle radiance that only occasionally caused spontaneous enlightenment in passing wildlife. Every species remembers their awakening differently, she said. Humans seem to prefer celebrating with quantum-enhanced potato salad and interdimensional bounce houses. Indeed, the celebration had taken on a distinctly Earth meets Cosmos flavor. Children played games that involved manipulating probability fields, their laughter echoing across multiple dimensions. Mrs. Peterson's Quantum Roses performed a symphony that existed in all possible keys simultaneously, while Howard Thompson used his newly developed abilities to ensure all party decorations maintained perfect quantum symmetry across parallel realities. Mayor Williams approached them, her consciousness easily sliding between dimensional states. The UN representatives will be arriving soon, she said, checking a watch that told time in 5 different quantum states, along with the first official delegation from the Galactic Council. The past week had seen humanity's rapid integration into the broader cosmic community. Once humans could perceive quantum signatures, it became impossible to miss the evidence of other advanced civilizations. The night sky had transformed into a glittering network of quantum communications, like a cosmic internet that had always been there, waiting for humanity to develop the senses to perceive it. Just remember, Zorax advised, as reality rippled pleasantly around them, some of the delegates exist primarily as probability waves. Try not to collapse their wave functions unless they invite you to. The arrival of the UN representatives coincided with a spectacular display of quantum phenomena. The sky above Stellar Heights blossomed with colors that hadn't existed before humanity's awakening, forming patterns that told stories in the language of physics itself. The Galactic Council delegates materialized in a shower of quantum possibilities, their forms shifting between states in a way that would have been mind-bending a month ago, but now seemed perfectly natural. Michael stepped up to the podium, which helpfully existed in all possible configurations to accommodate speakers of various dimensional preferences. His garden had insisted on attending and was currently offering quantum-enhanced refreshments to a group of fascinated alien diplomats. A month ago, he began, his voice carrying across multiple planes of existence. Our greatest concern in Stellar Heights was maintaining property values and ensuring lawns were cut to regulation height. This earned knowing chuckles from both human and non-human attendees. Today we stand, or exist in quantum superposition, as humanity's first quantum-enhanced community, ready to join a galactic civilization we never knew existed. He gestured to Xerox, who pulsed with prideful luminescence. What we thought was simply an alien moving into our neighborhood turned out to be the universe extending an invitation. The quantum awakening wasn't just about gaining new abilities, it was about opening our eyes to the true nature of reality and our place within it. A wave of quantum harmony swept through the crowd as humans and aliens alike shared in the moment. Even the local wildlife, now quantum-aware thanks to proximity to Zorax during her mating season, joined in the celebration. The enlightened squirrels had organized a quantum mechanics lecture series, while the garden gnomes had established a philosophical academy that was already gaining recognition across several dimensions. As we move forward, Michael continued, we face a future that exists in all possible states until we choose to collapse it into reality. Our children will grow up understanding the quantum nature of existence as naturally as we once understood gravity. And thanks to our new neighbors across the cosmos, he nodded to the assembled alien delegates, we have guides to help us navigate this new existence. The celebration continued well into the evening, with reality becoming increasingly fluid as the party reached its peak. Howard Thompson finally relaxed enough to enjoy himself, especially after discovering he could use quantum fields to ensure perfect lawn maintenance across infinite parallel dimensions. Mrs. Peterson's roses performed an encore that literally transcended space-time, moving several alien diplomats to tears, all their species equivalent. As the stars above twinkled in colors that reflected the quantum web of galactic civilization, Michael found himself standing with Zorax in his garden, where it had all begun. His tomatoes were now teaching advanced quantum physics to a group of interested alien scientists. You know, he said, watching as humanity celebrated its entrance into a larger universe, when you first moved in, I thought my quiet retirement was being disrupted. I had no idea we were about to become part of something so much bigger. Zorax's skin rippled with patterns that told stories of countless other awakenings across the galaxy. Every species finds their way to the quantum reality eventually. Humans just needed a little, neighborly nudge. Above them, the sky danced with the light of 1,000 quantum-enhanced civilizations, each one a potential friend and teacher in humanity's new existence. The future stretched out before them in infinite possible states, each one glowing with potential. In the end, it turned out that the most profound changes in human history hadn't come from a grand announcement or a dramatic first contact. Instead, it had begun with a simple new neighbor moving in next door, bringing with her not just an alien mating season, but an invitation to join the quantum dance of the cosmos. And as the celebration continued around them, existing in all possible states of joy simultaneously, the residents of Stellar Heights raised their quantum-enhanced glasses in a toast to the future, all possible versions of it. The universe, it seemed, had always been waiting for humanity to notice the doorway to a larger existence. All it took was one alien neighbor, one suburban neighborhood, and one mating season to help humanity finally step through. And somewhere in the distance, a garden gnome achieved cosmic enlightenment and began teaching the secrets of the universe to anyone who would listen, in all possible dimensions simultaneously. The end.